Bengals linebacker Logan Wilson inked to an extension, plus 2 days of training camp practices to start to catch up on, but a lot to talk about with this Logan Wilson extension.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Lisco. He's your host, James Rapine. We're once again coming to you from Paycor Stadium after another day of Bengals practice here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We've got coverage of your team every day. You can subscribe to this show on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcasts. And when you do that, it makes it really easy to join the First Listen Club. And I met a few of you out there today at practice. James meets you guys all the time. But for those of you that are everydayers, we really appreciate you in addition to those of you who make us your first listen every day. And James, we're going to start with Logan Wilson.
Yeah, Logan Wilson, the news of really the weekend. And before we dive into Logan, today's show is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL or enter promo code LockedOnNFL for a white tech hat with any order. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off, we promise you. And Logan Wilson, well, he can get plenty of Bird Dogs because he signed. I am rocking Bird Dogs right now, and the shorts are the most comfortable thing on the planet. That said, Logan Wilson, 4 years, $37.25 million is what he could potentially make over that 4-year extension. And so I don't know what the odds were that the Bengals are going to be able to keep Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson going into free agency. But in 5 months, they've been able to do that. And it's hard not to like keeping Logan Wilson around. I'm not sure many people had him being the first member of the 2020 Bengals draft class to get signed, but here he is. I think it was a reasonable deal. I think he had plenty of motivation to get a deal done, given some of his injury history, given that he was an older prospect, Jake. And at the same time, the Bengals, same thing. Why not keep a huge part of your defense? He's helped stabilize a linebacker room. No more third-round linebackers. They got this third-round linebacker right, and they paid him handsomely.
That's 2 third-down linebackers.
Yeah, Pratt and Logan. But you know how many – for years they would do that, and it would never work.
Well, you know, 5th, 6th, 7th time is a charm.
That's right.
I guess, and 2 of those were the charm with Pratt and Wilson. And there are a few layers here. One is Logan Wilson has said throughout the process that he wanted to be back here. Mm-hmm. We can talk about the financial aspect of the deal, how it compares to other linebackers. I know that a big talking point has been the Bengals' 2 linebackers cost roughly the same as Jesse Bates per year, certainly cheaper than the top linebackers, and that's 2 linebackers combined, which is an interesting point because the continuity there, and that's a big theme that we'll talk about, is something that I think shouldn't be underestimated. And then you talk about Logan Wilson, the player, what it means for other contracts that the Bengals might be working on. A big piece of feedback that we had when we sent this out to our Subtext subscribers. Shout out Subtext subscribers. If you want to do that, check out the description. It'll say join subtext.com/LockedOnBengals, and that's a way for us to send you text updates. And right after the deal came out, I sent a text update out, and it was Friday night. We were getting ready to go out for dinner.
Party.
And you know, for those of you that were doing the same thing, you're not scrolling social media, you'll get a text message from us. And so my first reactions were, it gets him to, it's an up to, we don't have the exact figures yet, but it's an up to that 37 plus some change million for the life of the deal. We know it averages about 11 million for the first 2 new years of the deal. So there's going to be a lot of money up front in the form of signing bonuses, roster bonuses in year 1, year 2. And the average over those 4 years is going to be about 12th in the NFL. It puts him right in the territory of DeMario Davis, another really good linebacker for the New Orleans Saints. And that's what the Bengals have now. They have 2 really good linebackers who know their system, who have the continuity. Lou Anarumo called them both coaches on the field. And it's a bit of a trite thing to say. And he kind of prefaced it with, like, I hate to give you this coach speak, but having 2 coaches on the field. And that's what you get with the continuity of these guys. Mm-hmm. They've been in the system for so long. They've had the same coaches for so long. You see it in practice too, like Jermaine Pratt moving guys around, communicating when the offense changes plays. Logan Wilson wears a green dot, does a lot of communication. So from a football aspect, having both of those guys locked up is a rare thing that Logan Wilson acknowledged. And it's I think a good use of money insofar as, yes, you're paying 2 linebackers, but it's not crazy money for either of them.
That's the part, is you didn't break the bank. And Logan could have bet on himself. And not that he hasn't, right? But he could have bet on himself, played this year out, and tried to just get the bag, like a bigger bag, and go elsewhere. But I think it's okay. He can shine in this defense. He's done that.
Yeah.
He's a big part of this defense. He's comfortable. He praised Zach Taylor, which we can talk more about that. Loves the culture, believes he can win here. Like, this is a win-win for everybody, where, if he continues to perform at a high level, he'll be a Bengal for the foreseeable future. And he can run, he can cover. Heck, they went back to the draft. Zach did, as he introduced him, and said, look, we were sweating after picking T. Higgins. Obviously, they take Joe Burrow number 1 overall, T. Higgins 33rd, which a steal that he made it there. And then they had a high second-round grade on Logan Wilson. And so for him to fall to pick 65 in the 3rd round, they were ecstatic about that. And I know they were sweating that entire draft until Logan fell to them. And they nailed it. This is the part of it that's fun to me, Jake, because we spent all this time covering every draft, talking about all these prospects. Logan was a guy, we weren't doing the show together then. You were doing it with Joe, but you mentioned Logan. Like, I remember you guys talking about it. You mentioned Logan right before the draft. They take him, and it's worked out, and now he's going to be here for, hopefully, what is at least 8 years, maybe longer than that. Maybe he continues to just ball out. And the other thing that stood out to me was the fact I asked, hey, did you celebrate? Because the Bengals were off on Saturday. They didn't have practice. And he was like, no, I did my normal Pilates and treatment program. And my wife and I just went to breakfast, which they probably would have done anyways. So Logan Wilson, just very unassuming, very businesslike. And you would never look at that man and say, oh, he's worth $30 million. And yet he just inked a $30+ million deal with the Bengals on Saturday.
And continues to downplay his importance, the humility.
Small part.
I'm a small part of the success we've had here, being here when we were 4-12-1 and being a small part of getting to where we are. I would say the way he played in that Super Bowl, big part of this team's success, coming off that injury, the shoulder injury that he talked about being a big challenge for him in his press conference. He's overcome a few challenging things. And like you said, James, from a skill set perspective, really became a complete linebacker very quickly. There aren't very many other guys who can cover and play the run as well as he can. There are a few, and that's why there are some $20 million linebackers in the league right now, or $19+ million linebackers in the league. But I think it's a good value for the Bengals. I don't think this is, I don't think that Logan Wilson is necessarily as good as some of those 20, like the Fred Warners of the world, but I do think he's a really, really good player, and they got a good deal there. And I think there's a good value there. I think there's a good value for Pratt. And you put that together, yes, you're spending like $16-15 million a year on your starting 2 linebackers, but they're going to be on the field a lot for this team. That's something else that Lou Anarumo talked about that really stood out to me, actually, James, is when he was talking about how when you don't have to take guys off the field, you don't have to make those substitutions to change what you're doing because you have guys that can do a lot, then you're not tipping your hand, right? And we've talked about that with a number of positions, not just linebacker. And maybe I'm reading into this too much. Maybe that means Jermaine Pratt's going to be on the field more on 3rd down this year. We'll have to see how they're matching up with tight ends in the preseason. We'll have to keep an eye on what they're doing with that in camp with Irv Smith. And I mean, from what I've seen so far, it's been, either Dax Hill rolling down. It's been some linebackers in zone from time to time, but there will be some interesting things there as well with these linebackers together. There are also potentially some implications here for some other contracts and some other themes that came out in Logan Wilson's press conference and Lou Anarumo's press conference, and just things that I've heard that came out of that again today with those press conferences on Sunday. So we can talk about some of that, what's next, and some of those themes coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs, well, they're going to make you feel good, look good. Jake mentioned it. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll stand up rocking the Bird Dogs. I'm rocking the Bird Dog shorts, and they are super comfortable. They're going to give your leg that truly sculpted look. All the everydayers that see us at training camp, I've worn Bird Dogs most of camp because, well, they're going to keep you dry even in the sun when it's 95 and you're watching these players go the way you weren't expecting them to. So you have to walk all the way around the field. Bird Dogs are going to keep you dry. And yeah, look, Jake's like, man, I got way too many steps
Too
in
many
doing
steps.
that.
It's hot.
You need to check out Bird Dogs. And it's not just shorts. They have their joggers, which are amazing. And it's a practice staple for me later in the year, in the fall and winter months, is to wear Bird Dogs joggers. You have to check them out right now, whether it's their khakis, their shorts, all in one spot at birddogs.com/lockedonnfl, or use promo code LockedOnNFL for a free white tech hat with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedonnfl, or promo code LockedOnNFL for that free white tech hat. You're not going to regret it. So go there now. birddogs.com/lockedonnfl.
So where I was going earlier with that subtext reference was one of the big reactions to the Logan Wilson signing was, okay, what does that mean for some of these other contracts the Bengals are going to try to get done? And one very popular theory that I've seen floated, and multiple people have sent this to me, is that Joe Burrow is just waiting. And that's why that deal isn't done. You know what he's waiting for? He's waiting for Logan to sign his deal. He's waiting for T to sign his deal. He's waiting for all that to be done. Then he's going to sign his deal. Then there was the other group that was, well, what does this mean for T? Mm-hmm. And what does this mean for some of these other guys that you may be thinking about for extensions? And that's something that I think bears is relevant. It's worth talking about.
Yeah, and we haven't talked about it, so this is going to be fun because I don't know exactly what Jake's thinking and vice versa. So let's start. I don't think any Logan Wilson deal would have impacted Joe Burrow's deal at all.
Nope.
I don't think Burrow's waiting either. I don't. So we'll throw that one out there.
It's a funny idea.
It's a great idea. If Joe didn't care about his bank account, which he should and does, spoiler. Saw him in the locker room again today, by the way. Still has the calf sleeve. Think he's getting better. We'll see. I know he's been in better shape now than he was a year ago. I can say that much. That said, does it impact T. Higgins? It could, but I don't think so. I still think that the Bengals, whether or not they get T done, is going to come down to T and T's agent. So we agree there. Okay. Here's where I do think the Logan Wilson deal could impact things. You can only pay so many defensive players to be your core defensive players. Pratt for the next 3 years. Wilson now under contract through 2027, 5 years if you include this year with the 4-year extension. Trey Hendrickson for the next 3 years under contract. Sam Hubbard for the next 3 years under contract. I don't know if there's a T deal plus a Reader deal. In fact, I don't think there is. I don't think that's even a debate, by the way, where the Bengals are like Reader or T. Not even close. They may just be done on defense or very close to it because they want to pay T, because they want to pay Joe. And we know that this was going to be kind of the route they would go down. Now, could they do a Mike Hilton deal like with Hendrickson? Like, could there be little things like a 1 year? Could they do that? Yes. But I don't think that there's any big defensive extensions coming. And by big, I mean DJ Reader. I don't think that happens.
Chidobe Awuzie.
Yeah, which would be great. I just, coming off the ACL, I don't know if he would want to sign for what they would be willing to offer and vice versa, because he probably wants to show everyone he's a top corner and hit the market because he's on a very team-friendly contract.
We do have a Cheeto note that we'll get to later. Teaser. Spoiler? Not spoiler. Teaser.
Spoiler, teaser. Either one works.
I guess either works. Yeah, I don't know that this deal impacts things for DJ's extension hopes if those exist. I'm not sure that was ever something that was under serious. I'm sure they've talked about it. I don't know that those talks ever started.
I don't think they have. Here's the path to them having started would have been Logan wants $15 million per year. They're not even close. Mm-hmm. He plays it out, and they have this pot of money. And maybe it's because they can't get something done with T, and they look and they're like, we really like DJ. Mm-hmm. Let's go that route. Like, I could see the path happening. I don't think they went down the path to your point at all.
Yeah, I don't necessarily, but maybe later, right? Like, that's what it means, is that that path is maybe the doors may be closed.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah,
and maybe not entirely. Depends on what happens with T. Maybe they aren't even close with T.
But I don't think that's a dynamic, though. I know it has been on social media. I don't think it's like DJ or T.
Yeah,
I really don't. I
mean, they would need to spend the money in those years. So say T wants $23 million. They're going to spend that money somewhere else. And maybe it's not DJ Reader, because we know how they feel about third contracts. We know how they feel about players on the wrong side of 30 and DJ's approaching those things. So that could just kind of be that.
Who would you, let's say they don't get something done with T and they have this pot of money. You're right. Would you try to sign Cheeto to an extension or DJ?
Justin Jefferson. Nah. He's probably not making it to the market.
Sign and trade.
This is a year for Jefferson to sign an extension.
Yeah, it is.
Have you heard anything about that?
No.
All right. We'll have to check with Luke over on Locked On Vikings about that one. What was the question?
Cheeto, DJ. You could only sign one.
DJ. And here's why. I love Chidobe Awuzie as a player. I think he's a very interesting guy. The additional interest he has outside of football, we were talking about that earlier this week. You don't see a ton of football players who you really get to know some of the stuff that they're really into. You see some of this for sure, and some of the higher profile players. But some of the work that Cheeto does off the field, the stuff he does with chess speaks to me as a chess nerd, of course. But they've drafted DJ Turner. They drafted Cam Taylor-Britt. They've got security in the slot for at least 2 more years with Mike Hilton. And I do think that he's a candidate for the 1-year extension, like we saw with Trey Hendrickson. Similar length on their deals.
Mm-hmm.
And we know they love Mike Hilton. Mm-hmm. Mike Hilton, huge deal to this team. So they've drafted for the future at the position. DJ Ivey, another guy deep there, made another play in practice on Sunday that was a really impressive stop. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the rationale, right? What do you think? Are you on the same page?
I think they would be more interested in re-signing Cheeto. Me, it's tough.
Even with the corners they have.
It's
even
tough.
With DJ Turner and Cam Taylor-Britt.
I think so. I might be dead wrong on that. DJ's been hurt. It's not just one injury. I think that's the part of it where it's like, man, you're signing this guy into his 30s. He's
a scheme transformer, though, James.
I'm not saying he's not valuable. He's debating his value, and I hope he does get a deal because I like DJ a lot. I'm just, if I had to predict what they would do, it's probably neither, to be quite frank. But if it was one or the other, I would probably lean towards Cheeto if it's them. Me, I know what DJ means. I also think Cheeto means a lot. It's tough.
It is tough.
You know what I would do? I would get T done. That's what I would do because I care about wide receivers.
Well, but we know that's a priority for them, right?
No doubt.
That's still something that they're working on.
No doubt.
And the things that have happened outside of T's deal don't impact T's deal. They're working on extending the first 3 rounds of that draft class.
Yeah.
Those are things that are still in progress. Logan Wilson got done first, which is a little bit surprising. I was surprised when I learned about that on Friday. I was surprised that it was first. I was a little bit surprised that the Burrow domino didn't have to fit in first, but then the reason that wouldn't necessarily be surprising is I think they know how roughly those Burrow years are going to fit in from a cap perspective. And so I think they have an idea of what the cap hits are going to look like over the next few years for Joe Burrow, for the potential T. Higgins deal, for Logan Wilson, for these other contracts. The other thing you mentioned, the defensive continuity they have locked up for 3 years, and just from strictly a contract perspective, those do get to be pretty close to team option years in the third year of Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard for those deals. So they do have a little bit of
Jermaine Pratt
there.
And Pratt.
I would be surprised if Pratt.
Well, he's reasonable, but I'm just saying
something could change.
But Logan will be on the team then. Still, that won't be a team option year because it'll only be 2 years into his new deal.
And he has 4 years on that extension. Some practice notes.
Yeah, let's get to some practice notes. We have there was football practice on Sunday, Jake.
Yeah, how about that? We'll talk about 2 practices worth of notes. We have a couple things perhaps from Friday we can hit as well. Friday was a lighter practice, some bumps and bruises there as well. We'll get into some practice notes here coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is almost here, and that's why you got to get to FanDuel. It's going to give you the chance to win all season long, and right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets back every time they win in the regular season. Think about that. So if you think the Bengals are going to win the Super Bowl, you can get bonus bets back every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. So don't delay. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to wager on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more, and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/lockedon.
Couple training camp practice notes to hit. And we'll start with today. It's fresh in the mind. It was a more intense practice. So Friday, I guess I'm not starting with today. Friday, they scaled things back. They had a very intense practice on Thursday last week, their first unscripted move the ball stuff. They went back to some move the ball stuff today on Sunday. Friday's practice much lighter by comparison. And a lot of guys took vet days or took rest days because there were bumps and bruises that pile up. And everyone's dealing with a little bit of soreness here and there. And after Joe Burrow's calf strain, a lot of guys and the coaching staff and the training staff not trying to push more lower extremity soft tissue injuries at this time of year. So then getting to today, Sunday's practice, a couple move the ball periods and a few standouts. Before we get to the move the ball periods, the Cheeto tease from earlier was that those of you on Subtext have seen this, and those of you that are active on Twitter have seen this. Cheeto got his first reps that I've seen working against Bengals receivers. And we saw him kind of work on the defense as a running back on Friday, I believe, which maybe is a step toward doing something because it's team on team, but the defense is simulating the offense there. And it wasn't full speed, but Cheeto I believe it was during the install part of practice because we couldn't record it, was working against the offense.
Yep.
And that seems to be a step toward maybe we'll see him in 7-on-7s sometime soon. Mm-hmm. Maybe not Green Bay. Maybe it's after Green Bay. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's after the first preseason game, but it's another step in the right direction for Chidobe Awuzie.
It is, and it's great to see. And all along, whether it's fair or not, I thought he's going to be back week 1, and I've kind of put that expectation on him, and I think he's delivered in every way. He looks like he's in great shape. He's moving great, and I think they could throw him out there in team drills 11-on-11 right now. Zach Taylor's just trying to give him as much time as possible. So hopefully Cheeto's back. Another quick injury note, Alex Kappa dealing with a minor strain, didn't finish Sunday's practice. Not a big deal, according to Frank Pollock. He was in the locker room, saw him. He looked fine. So I think it was more of a precautionary thing than anything, but I at least want to note that. Charlie Jones, we haven't had more on Charlie Jones. Mm-hmm. He missed a couple of practices, was out Friday after hurting his shoulder, was out again on Sunday. I think he's okay, though. I chatted with him and I've talked to a few others. I think he's going to be fine and be back soon, hopefully for Wednesday in that joint practice. I think that's what they're hoping for. Is let's shelve him and then bring him in for that joint practice if possible.
If he can play in the joint practice, hopefully he can play in the game. Those are big snaps for him. All these rookies, all these young guys need all the reps, as many as they can get at pretty much every position. It's just important to them to be able to play early and contribute early in their careers. You just need the NFL speed. And that's, speaking of Frank Pollock, something that he said in praise of Cordell Volson. We don't have to get too far into this, but it was just something that really stood out in terms of accentuating why it's important to play at game speed. The NFL game is just faster. It's faster than practices. It's faster than preseason games. It's faster than college football. Cordell Volson did everything this coaching staff wanted last year, right? And then he got better as the year went on, had his rookie lumps, had his rookie growing pains. And this year, Frank said after practice today, Frank Pollock said that, he's playing faster. He's playing more aggressively. He doesn't have to think as hard because he has the experience. He knows what is being asked of him. And it's just a great little anecdotal point of it can take some time for these guys to adapt to the NFL game. And that's why these refs are so important.
No doubt. And hopefully Cordell Volson can take a leap forward. And offensive line wise, I think it was a mixed bag.
It was.
But overall, like I said, I think they've had a pretty good camp. Jonah Williams, and we could talk more about Jonah on tomorrow's show, but was with the first team offense again today as the rotations continued. And speaking of rotations, something that we saw on Sunday, quarterback rotation with the ones. We have not seen that where they would rotate. They did that on Sunday, and I think it's just All right, let's see how they react to this, because that's probably what they should do in the joint practice. Is alternate and be able to face a first team defense.
Yeah.
And so you do that now. Monday's going to be more of a special teams day, as far as we know. So I think it makes sense. I also think Trevor Siemian has gone from losing ground early in camp to being having the clear edge as of today. It changes, but I think he came into camp with the edge. Then it got to 50-50, maybe 51-49 Jake Browning. Now I think it's Siemian again.
Yeah, I think you can see some clear differences in arm talent between the two. You can see some clear differences in experience and that showing up in a variety of ways. Neither guy's perfect. They're both, backup quarterbacks. Trevor Siemian has started a lot of games. Still, we're talking about a backup, hopefully a good backup quarterback. But it was good to see them switching. And I think you're right. I think you're exactly right, actually, that it's preparation for that Green Bay practice. Because if they want to see both guys going against first-team Green Bay with first-team Bengals, then probably good to rep that against your own guys first.
Will Jordan Love beat out Jake Browning and Trevor Siemian? That was mean.
Jordan Love isn't going to play, is he?
He will in the joint practice.
In the joint practice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Will he be the best quarterback on the field?
Yeah, we'll find out Wednesday.
He better be.
You would hope so if you're Green Bay. If you're the Bengals, I'd hope Trevor Siemian's or
well,
Jake Browning
sure, no doubt.
A couple other things from practice that I alluded to. A DJ Ivy play earlier made a great stop. It was a fourth down, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, it was a third down. Was it? No, it was a fourth down. Second team. It was a fourth down play. That was very noteworthy. The only opportunity we saw that was close to a touchdown in the move the ball drill for the offense was a Jamar Chase play that ended up being called for offensive pass interference. James thinks it was questionable. I thought I saw it, and I was looking immediately to see if they were going to call it.
Mm-hmm.
They did call it.
The coach told Jamar, one of the coaches, and this is what Jamar said, that he bench pressed him.
That's what it looked like to me.
And so Jamar said, I guess I did.
You didn't think so?
Bench press, like full extension, I did not. No, I think he definitely pushed off.
I saw the arms extend. And when it's two hands and you can see it, I mean, from where I was on the opposite corner of the end zone.
I just think Cam Taylor-Britt can't get bench pressed.
That is true. Whenever there's a penalty that isn't called, we always say just don't let them beat you, even if they cheat. That's rule number one. Even if you're getting interfered with, still catch the ball, and then the interference doesn't matter. You still have a chance to go score a touchdown. Mm-hmm. Interference is a spot penalty. You never score a touchdown on pass interference. But no touchdowns for the offense. Am I right? No touchdowns in the move the ball drill.
Did T score? I thought T scored on that same drive. Didn't he get in?
Did he get all the way in?
I thought he got in. Obviously, they're playing touch. Like, you're down.
Yeah. So maybe T gets in. So that's the other play that I wanted to talk about, though. That was very interesting.
The deep ball to T?
The deep ball to T. Higgins. And the reason this is interesting, I don't remember who I was talking to. I was talking to one of the other media members, and they said that this has been a theme. So hopefully I'm not giving anything away here. But we're allowed to record this period, and do you have that?
Yeah, I do.
But it's T. Higgins goes in motion. Mike Hilton runs with T. Higgins in motion. You have Mike Hilton running with T. Higgins in motion. That's a pretty big tell that you've got a 1 foot advantage in the slot in man coverage.
Mm-hmm.
They run a slot fade. T gets behind Mike. T's bigger than Mike. T catches the ball. T's running after the catch.
Yeah.
And getting T. Higgins into the slot, we talk a lot about getting Jamar Chase into the slot, but you can get some real mismatches with a guy that moves as well as T. Higgins does and is the size that T. Higgins is and is as proficient in jump ball, contested catch situations as T. Higgins is, if you can get him against some of the slot corners in the NFL.
I think that's kind of the next step. I talked with T after practice and asked him about the slot fade. He loves running it, smiled ear to ear when I asked him about it. And they plan on moving him around a bit more. And one of the things he said he's really grown is being able to read coverages and just the understanding of the game. Obviously, he's as strong as he's ever been. But that's the part of it where it's like, oh, if they move him around and he can play anywhere, like Jamar can play anywhere, what a weapon. And I think that is the plan, to generate more explosives. Something that they need to do, find a way to solve the riddle a bit. And maybe moving T is going to help do that.
And we saw that. That was a big explosive play.
Yeah.
Probably the most explosive play of practice. There was a couple run and catch plays that went for like 15 yards for the second team. One was a screen to Chris Evans, I believe, and one was a a dump off to Nick Bowers, I think, 82.
Yeah. That was not a pretty play. Not Nick's fault either. It was just kind of
Andre Josevich also had a nice day on Sunday. And we'll get into some of these maybe in a little bit more detail. Some guys we haven't talked a ton about: Chase Brown, Andre Josevich.
We have a lot to get to.
We have so much. We have a little bit of a backlog. We'll catch up a little bit more tomorrow. We're anticipating a special teams practice tomorrow, so hopefully we'll be able to catch up on some more there. We'll talk about whatever is very noteworthy out of the special teams practice as well. But we've got 2 more practices for me in person. We're 5 days away as we record this from a preseason game. Football, Bengals football, Paycor Stadium football, right around the corner. And it didn't hit me until we started recording how close that is. I looked down at the date and thought about when that preseason starts. We're there.
We're there.
It's game week.
It's game week.
It's game week. That's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. We'll be back for more practice takeaways in the ramp up to that preseason game. So for you everydayers, don't miss out and join that everyday club, because you're going to miss something if you don't. Until next time, Bengals fans, thanks for listening to this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Hoo day, and have a good one.